G'day everyone, Lucas here from the Aussie Gamers Experience, and today I am unboxing the Republic of Gamers Strix Scar 3 gaming laptop. Alright, now I have taken a look at some of the specs for this thing and it looks like an absolute beast, but there's only going to be one way to find out, and later in this video I'm going to try out playing the latest Microsoft title, which is Gears of War 5. But first, let's get this thing unboxed. Alright, so here is the box. It's a little bit beat up. This is a loaner model. This has been lent to me for the purpose of this video from ASUS, and I would imagine a few people have had their hands on this one before me, which is why it's a little bit beat up. But if you ignore the fact that the box is beat up, it's actually a pretty cool design box. I like that. Yeah, that's ugly as all hell. Let's not look at the back for too long. That's the other wrong way around. Let's open it up. Ooh, oh, it's got like a brushed aluminium look to it. This back section is plastic and this is, yeah, that's actual aluminium. There's nowhere to grab this from. Who designed this box? Come on. How do you get your fingers in there? Here we go. We'll just pry it out like that. Ooh, that is a lot thinner than I thought it was going to be. Check out that form factor. That is thin. Alright, we'll put the computer aside. Let's have a look at what is in here. And the good thing about these videos is because I've got to return this thing, I can watch the video back and see where everything goes. Right, so power cord. So that's just a regular power cord that you would use for a computer. That's all that's in there, I think. On this side, we've got the power brick. It's a branded power brick there, it looks nice. That's where that other plug goes into. And we've got that power adapter for the laptop itself. Alright, let's put that aside. That's all there is for me. So we'll put the box away. And let's come back to the computer. That's a very thin bezel. I like that, that looks cool. 240 Hertz, 3 millisecond monitor. That's high frame rates. That's 240 frames a second in other speak. But it has a 3 millisecond response time. Now I have used monitors with 1 millisecond response time. Probably does make a difference, but it's not something that I would probably notice. I'd actually use like a high frame rate slow motion to actually pick up the frame rate, oh, sorry, the millisecond difference. But this is 3 milliseconds, 240 Hertz gaming monitor there. All right, now what do we got? Like, oh, I like that. The arrow keys up, down, left, right. While they are small, they are separated. I like that, rather than them being squished up into like a square. So you can actually feel where those keys are. So that's pretty cool. I like that keyboard there. Spacebar's a little bit different to most laptops, but good. They look like they're backlit, but I don't know. Alright, now just going off the stickers that are on the front of this thing, it's an Intel Core i7 9th gen with the GeForce RTX. I don't know what RTX is in it just yet. It'll be whatever the mobile version is, but I'll find out. We'll have a look at the specs up on the screen when we boot it up, which I think we can do now. It has absolutely no power. Let's plug it in. 1 second. Who wrapped this thing? Seriously. That is not care for PC parts right there. You know what, I decided before we actually boot it up, let's have a look at the ports that this has. Right, on the back here we've got, this is where the power goes into, this is USB-C, and then we've got HDMI output and Ethernet output. Now we've got some heat vents on the back. On the side, I don't actually think that's anything there. I think that's just a light, just for design. And on the other side, we have 3 USB ports and a headphone jack. Now these USB, doesn't say what kind of USB they are, but they're black, which makes me think they're USB 2. I don't see any blue USB ports, which makes me think it doesn't have USB 3, but it does have USB-C on the back. All right, let's boot this up. All right, ready to turn it on. Let's go. All right, we got power. Oh, wow. That's a really high fidelity sound effect when you just switch it on. Okay, it doesn't look like it's set up. All right, I'll go through the setup procedure and I'll be back. Alright, so this has finished updating and installing Windows. It only took about 5 minutes or so. Windows was essentially already installed, however it just did its initial setup, which it's done now. And the first thing I've noticed is this beautiful refresh rate. That is so amazing. 240 Hertz is what it's set at. Now what I want to do as well is have a look at what the system settings are on, what is in this system. So we'll have a look at the system information. And let's go into here. Right, we've got the system summary up here. So it's running Windows 10. That's just built in. It is the Republic of Gamers Strix G531GW 64 based x64 based PC. And the CPU we're running inside here is an i7-9750 at 2.6 gigahertz. Now, some people might not know what that means. Look, I understand it to a small degree. And it's a pretty powerful PC. All right, and the physical memory or the RAM that's installed is 16 gigabytes as well, which is more than enough to play your video games because most games are usually asking for about 8. 16 gig is plenty. That's really good. A lot of people like to overkill and go for 32. It's not absolutely necessary. The more RAM, the better, but it doesn't make a massive difference when you're playing games. If it's a gaming PC, 16 is plenty. Well, the next thing I'm interested in is finding out what the video card in this thing is. Now, it is going to be the mobile version, so they're slightly less powered than desktop stuff. But this one's running an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070, and it's only one model shy of the big mother of the 2080. But a 2070 in this thing is probably going to be pretty impressive. I really can't wait to get Gears 5 installed on this and give it a try. The resolution that this is set at is 1080p, so it's 1920 by 1080p and running at 240 Hertz. Now the output of the Hertz or the frames per second is going to be massively determined by the game you're actually playing and whether or not it's designed to play at certain high frames. If it has an uncapped frame rate for a video game, this computer may well push out 240, but it will all depend. Windows itself will run at a native 1080p and 240 Hertz, and you can tell by the cursor movements alone, or if I open up the window and move this around, it's probably not going to translate into the video because we're only looking at 30 frames a second for this video, but in person, that is swish, that is smooth, it's buttery smooth, it's really nice. So I'm really keen to see how games play on this, play Gears 5, see how it runs, try out some things, and come back and give you my overall opinion on what this gaming laptop is like and whether or not it is something that I would happily use myself. So I'll go away and we'll probably fast forward a couple of days and I'll come back and give you my opinion and show you some gameplay of Gears 5 running on this thing. Thanks a lot. I'll see you again very soon. Alright, well I've spent quite a bit of time playing with this laptop here and I can guarantee this is a bloody good contender for a gaming computer. Now what I did do originally is I captured some direct footage from the computer, however I found that it did impact the performance of it quite significantly. I was averaging around 60 frames a second, but I wanted to show what a real world test would be like. Generally, you're going to be playing a game like this, you may not necessarily be capturing footage. So I did the benchmark test here, which performed quite well. And although this is a pretty heavy benchmark, because as you will see after this video, the performance is much higher when you're playing the actual game modes. But the frame rate at the moment is averaging 77 frames a second, and the overall average was 77.3 frames per second in that one. So that was pretty good for a benchmark test, and that's pretty harsh. So in this one here, now I'm playing not Horde mode, this is Escape, which is one of the new modes to Gears of War 5. And you'll see in the bottom, well there it is on screen, 108, 113, 118, 119, it very rarely dropped below 100 frames a second. There were a couple of instances where it dipped down to about 90 frames a second, but this is bloody good. Now the settings this is set to at the moment, everything is either on ultra or high, which is what the game recommends for the system setup. And I didn't notice any issues, any frame skipping or anything like that. And yeah, I figured the best way to actually show it off without directly capturing, which would, you know, sort of hamper the performance a little bit, was just to film the screen old school style. So there you go. I think the performance is very, very good. And this is your newest of the newest AAA games, which should be testing out hardware, and it performed quite well. Alright, I am back, and now I have put some significant time into playing with this computer, and I've got some results. Well, the first thing that I want to clarify is earlier in the video, I did make a comment about I wasn't sure about the USB ports because they were black. Black usually is the USB 2 and blue USB ports are usually USB 3. But I am happy to report that regardless of their color, they actually are 3 USB 3 ports, as well as that USB-C port, which is on the back. And also in the beginning portion of the video, I wasn't exactly sure what size the screen was, but it's a 15.6 inch monitor. Now also there is a bigger monitor that you can actually pick that comes with a 17.3 inch screen as well. Also, for all you RGB enthusiasts, the keyboard is backlit, as well as the lighting strip around the edges, and they're all customizable. It comes with preset little flashing and, you know, all the crazy different modes. Whether or not you'd actually use that while you're playing it, I definitely wouldn't, because it's very distracting, but it does look cool. But you can customize it. You can make it breathe, you can make it flash, you can make it any color of the rainbow. If you like RGB, I kind of do, and that's pretty cool. You can do that. One really neat feature that I was happy to see was part of the SCAR 3 was the smartphone app. Now there are a lot of things that are getting smartphone integrations, which is quite nice. And with this one, you can customize all your colored lights and all that sort of stuff using your phone, but you can also keep an eye on core temperatures and speed outputs and things like that for graphics and for CPU while you're playing without having to alt tab or do some sort of monitoring system on the computer itself. You can do it on your phone. It gives you an extra screen to use, which is pretty neat and very handy. And I thought that was a really neat feature. You just download the app, you scan the QR code on the computer screen when you do the setup, and it'll automatically pair Bluetooth between your phone and the computer. This is pretty neat. Now another part that was actually pretty good for something that I would have normally expected to be not that good on a laptop computer, and that's the speakers. The speakers, although they are, well, probably going to be secondary to using a pair of headphones most of the time, specifically for me, they're actually not that bad, and they have some really good volume to them. They performed quite well. They gave a lot more bass than I thought they would, and yeah, I think the speakers are probably among some of the best that I've used on a laptop mobile gaming rig. Now for one of the scary parts that can turn some people away from this kind of a gaming computer, and by that I mean as opposed to going for a desktop. If you're going to be playing this one at home, beware, she's loud. Those fans, once they get up and going, and it doesn't even need to be overheating for these fans to kick in, and I guess that's a bit of a maintenance thing where it doesn't want it to overheat, and because it's such a small form factor, it's very easy for heat to build up. So those fans are going to spool up real quick as soon as you boot any game, really. You're going to be in for a bit of a jet engine wind tunnel. Thankfully though, if you are just using it for day-to-day use and browsing the internet, checking some stuff on eBay, going on Facebook or Twitter, Facebook, who uses Facebook? It has a silent mode and those fans won't spool up at all. It can be quite quiet and just like a normal computer. Now the last thing I'm going to mention is the actual size of the computer, and this probably goes hand in hand with why it gets so loud with those fans, is because it's quite thin. It's very small for everything that they've packed into this bloody thing. It is amazing. I really like the fact that it is really small. It's because, you know, I've seen those powerful gaming rigs that are big, massive, chunky things, and that's good for heat, which gaming computers are going to produce. But they're just way too big and ugly looking. However, this thing, the Scar 3, just looks like a normal gaming, well, just looks like a normal computer, really, a normal laptop. It doesn't look space aged. It looks nice, elegant, brushed aluminium, and those cool lights without going crazy large and looking like an alien spaceship. So it's easy to carry around, and it doesn't weigh a ton, and it's just a good size. I almost forgot one of the coolest things, and it's probably one of these things that if you see somebody that hasn't seen your computer before, you go, hey, check this out, and you press a button and show them this cool thing. While it's not, you know, world breaking, it's actually pretty neat, and it's something I haven't seen before, and it's a good use of space, and that's the Numberpad, which is built into the touch sensitive area where the mouse pad is. So what you do is you press and hold the numlock button, which is on the mouse pad, and then the number keys appear, and it's really strange because you can't really see them when it's off. It's only visible when it's on. You can't even see sort of like a slight shadow of it at all. But you can, this is a great use of space. You press that numlock and then you get your number keys there. So if you're punching in numbers, or if you've got to punch in a passcode to unlock it, you can just use those. It's actually pretty cool. I'm happy with that. And it's, like I said, it's probably not something that's world breaking, but it is something pretty neat nonetheless. All right, so I'm going to close up now with a bit of a summary on what I think. Now, generally before I had to play with this computer, I was probably very against playing games or having a gaming laptop. I thought it was silly. I thought that it would be way too expensive, and compared to, you know, getting a normal desktop, I thought the components are a lot cheaper going that way as opposed to buying something like this. The Scar 3 has changed my opinion somewhat, and I had a look at the pricing for this. I'm not going to mention the pricing because it may change. However, compared to the pricing now and compared to what I've paid for my computer, this is actually a pretty good price for what you're getting. Having that 2070 in there, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the amazing 240 hertz screen. This thing is probably, I don't want to admit it, but it's probably twice as good as my main PC at home. Now I can upgrade my PC at home, but I've already spent more on my home PC than I would have had I bought something like this. This thing impressed me. This is probably the best one that I have ever used. The performance of that punched out, getting me up to like 180 frames a second in Gears of War 5 using ultra and high settings. What? My God. Alright, so if you have any questions whatsoever, pop them in the comment section down below, and if I can, I will reply. Hopefully, if not, somebody else in the community can reply and help you out. If you like this video, give it a like, give it that thumbs up button, and if you liked it, then hit subscribe, and then you'll see more videos from the Aussie Gamers Experience and myself as they come out, and there's plenty in the backlog as well. Don't forget to check out our weekly podcast. I think that's all of the YouTube stuff you need to say. Like, subscribe, comment, follow. I'll see you on Twitter. Thanks, guys. Until next time, I am Lucas, and I will see ya! Let's play some more Gears.